Haibane Renmei is unlike any other anime series I've ever watched, both in its content and its presentation. It's a show put together by Yoshitoshi, a man who always leaves his mark on the anime he works on. Shows like Technolize and Serial Experiments Lane are some of the most ambitious shows I've ever watched. They're dark, they're philosophical, they're confusing, and they're amazing. Haibane Renmei is no exception. There's something about these shows, something unique, some underlying element that pushes them apart from every other anime. Whatever it is, I have to say it gives birth to some of animation's best works. Haibane Renmei starts you, the viewer, off completely unaware of anything in the show. It literally drops you into a mysterious world, lets you ask questions, and gives you answers that just feed the mystery even more. The start of the anime is absolutely superb in giving the viewer just the right amount of information and insights to stay very curious, without giving away too much that it feels too scripted. The viewer will naturally feel interested in the world without really knowing anything about it, much like our main character who's in the same position. It actually starts making the viewer think about the show, and you start to make things up in your head about the world and the characters. It's such an odd sensation from what seems like such a minimal amount of information. This continues throughout the first half of the show as you're given little hints and clues that open up the mystery even more. What's smart about how the anime reveals itself is the order in which it does so. It doesn't just gradually open up everything, it picks certain specific parts of the world to show you, and hides everything else. Even when it does show you something, it never shows you in full detail. There's always an element of mystery attached, even to the most mundane things. The second half of the show, without giving away any spoilers, is little short of a masterpiece. It takes all the mystery and curiosity the viewers built up in the first half and creates one of the most beautiful stories I've ever experienced. And by beautiful I don't mean swaying flowers and pots of honey, I mean crows at the bottom of wells. That beautiful. The second half really goes into the characters, looking at them psychologically, going deep into their emotions and thoughts. I think this is one of the show's strongest elements. You get completely engrossed into these mysterious characters that you know almost nothing about, but feel such a connection to. Like the story, the show leaves chunks of knowledge from the characters away from the viewer. This builds up so much curiosity and intrigue that you find yourself obsessed with the characters. Who are they and why they're here? The show finishes with just as much atmosphere and mystery as before. It doesn't wrap everything up with a happily ever after ending, as that would be dull and end up ruining the built up atmosphere. The final few episodes were spectacular. At this point in the story, you're so immersed into the characters in the world, that combined with the powerful ending creates one of the best final episodes I've ever seen in an anime. What's great about the ending is it doesn't just close the book, it leaves it completely open. Not because they wanted a sequel, but to leave the anime open to viewers. You're handed the anime, its characters and its world to do with as you please. It's up to you how you interpret the story. After finishing the show, there's still so much more to do, the illusion hasn't been broken. You can take the story many ways. It can be a story about whatever you want it to be, really. It's so well written with so many different angles tackled, it opens the show up so much. I can say in full confidence that this is one of the best stories in anime. Although the story is a massive part of the show, the art and animation are equally as important. You couldn't have one without the other. Much like Abe's other work, Haibane Renmei uses a very murky colour palette. This is something you very rarely see in anime. Normally shows use bright colours to make themselves stand out. While this might be good for sales, it harms the mood of the show, and can sometimes remove serious tones. I really don't think Haibane Renmei would have been as powerful without its low-key colour palette. The palette played down the world. It made everything feel darker and more mysterious. Because it's such an unusual decision, it creates another level of intrigue for the viewer. You're instantly more immersed in the world as it's something you've not seen before. The world itself is very simple. It consists mainly of village-style housing and green fields. Even the more unorthodox scenes are completely simple in design. I mean, one of the most powerful scenes in the show takes place at the bottom of a well, a place that would normally be avoided due to its lack of pretty much everything. A normal show would have maybe used a cliffside or a tropical beach for these scenes, but Haibane Renmei isn't a normal anime. It used an almost pitch black location, but made it look so spectacular. The world of Haibane Renmei was simple, and the colour palette plays it down even more, but they managed to come full circle, and their world looks even more spectacular than any sort of Hollywood scene. Through its sheer simplicity, it becomes detailed. I can't talk about the visuals without looking at the animation. To be frank, the animation quality wasn't that high. Sometimes movement was a little underproduced and details could sometimes lack. Due to the nature of Abe's work, this happens quite a lot. But I've said this many times before, animation quality means nothing. The majority of my favourite anime have lower production quality than most shows, and many of my least favourite shows have superb animation quality. Take last year's Ping Pong. It didn't have the animation quality of shows like Fate Zero, but that didn't stop it telling one of the best stories of last year. For me, animation quality is just a bonus. If you take a poor story and make it look good, it's still a poor story. And it works the other way around. A well-written story will always be a well-written story, regardless of its presentation. So moving on from the animation quality, let's look at the show's artistic presentation. This was one of the show's strongest points. It just looked amazing. Every shot looked like a painting. The colours blended with the composition and design make for a natural blend that just works so well. Certain parts looked so dark and eerie, it made for some really tense scenes, but at the same time created some really warm scenes in other episodes. One of the best uses of this style was when Reki paints her dream into her room. It's so impactful and fits so well because the show has been using the art style since the beginning. The whole show has felt like a dream, so when we make the transition into a more surreal scene, it feels natural. Haibane Renmei is one of the most unique anime experiences out there. Every little detail added to the surreal and emotional ride. It feels more than just a 12-episode TV series. It feels like a whole world. The show connected me more than most shows I've watched without doing half as much. There are series with 5 times the amount of episodes that didn't come close to engaging me as much as Haibane Renmei did. It's one of the best shows I've ever watched and will always feel fresh to revisit. Now if you want to check out any more shows from Under the Radar, click any of them on the screen. And if you enjoyed this video, please do click the like button. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.